Minimalism has taught me a lot over the years. How to be thoughtful about each item I bring into the home, how to size down my wardrobe and be thoughtful about the things I own, and just how to be happier with less. But I'm not a minimalist. I've always been attracted to the idea of minimalism. I felt that living with as little as possible made a lot of sense and would make a lot of things easier. Cleaning, moving, finding things, all would be much more simple if I just owned less stuff. And there are times when I've really seriously considered adopting the philosophy. I've considered going digital with all the books I read, getting rid of most of my clothes to just a few staple outfits, clearing my desk and nightstand of all but a couple essential things. And as I considered more about minimalism and I shied away from taking the ultimate plunge and getting rid of my stuff, I always wondered if I was just scared. If I was just too attached to my things, if I was too scared to get rid of my things, and if I should just, work through the fear and get rid of it anyway. It's taken a lot of back and forth and consideration, but ultimately reading books from experts and watching videos on minimalism has taught me that I wouldn't necessarily be happier as a minimalist. It has taught me to think about my physical environment, my mental environment, the things I keep around me, but it's also showed me that I just wouldn't be happier getting rid of all of my stuff. If you can't tell by now, I love to collect. I've been a collector pretty much my whole life. I've been a Star Wars fan since I was 5 years old, and I still own just about every figure and Lego set that I ever got. In middle school and high school, I loved collecting figures from my favorite Nintendo games. And as I was growing up, my room was really my happy place, especially since I was homeschooled. I spent a lot of time in there and I had shelves with figures all over them. Very little in life brought me more joy than taking the figures off shelves, dusting them, reposing them, dusting the shelves, and giving my room a whole new look. Now, a lot of those figures have ended up in boxes in my parents' basement, but my dream has always been to have a home office where I can work from home and be surrounded by all those figures, all of the things that I love. But then, when I started reading about minimalism, a part of me wondered if that was frivolous, if I should stop focusing so much on things and, just get rid of all those things that I used to really love. But I used to wonder if minimalism was the answer and if I should just get rid of all of those things, if getting rid of all those things I used to love would make me happier and less focused on material stuff. But the more I read about minimalism, the more I realized I was using it as a proxy for control in my life that I felt like I didn't necessarily have. There were a lot of things I was uncertain about or dissatisfied with. And so minimalism to me seemed like this fix, this way to finally be happy and content. And I realized that that's not the truth. That's not what works for me. I realized that, collecting these things does truly bring me joy. And, spending $5 or $10 on an old Star Wars figure really brings me a lot of happiness. And there's nothing wrong with that. Collecting makes me happy. But my dives into minimalism did give me some valuable lessons that I still use today. The most important lesson minimalism taught me was to be thoughtful about the things I bring into the house. I used to be excited to just buy anything with the label Star Wars on it, or, I really loved buying new clothes even when I already had a full closet. I just liked the feeling of trying on a new piece of clothing. But consumption based on a momentary impulse is often what leads us to regretting certain purchases, feeling like, we shouldn't have bought that feeling of regret after you bring something home. We all know that feeling. We go into a store, we pick a piece of clothing off the rack that we think looks really nice. We try it on in the fitting room. We're maybe not 100% sold on it, but we still walk out the door with it and think we'll like it more later. And then we don't, and it ends up sitting in our closet with the tags on for years until we finally get around to trying to sell or donate it. Now it's very rare that I buy an article of clothing new at a store. In fact, I can't remember the last time I actually went into a store and bought an article of clothing at full price. Now I go to thrift stores when I need something, and I really only go when there is something specific that I need. When one too many of my t-shirts has gotten dingy with sweat stains and is pretty much unwearable, or one of my shorts rips in an inconvenient spot, then I'll go to a thrift store and look for the specific articles of clothing that I'm actually looking for. And I realized that, the reason I've always kind of been interested in clothing in the past is that I always wanted to dress well, to look sharp, to kind of, make my appearance look good for other people to think I looked good. And so that's why I always tried to keep up with trends, and that's why I was spending more money on clothes, was to get whatever was trendy at the time. Now though, I've realized that what makes me most happy is wearing clothes that are unique or fun. I've probably got at least 5 different clothing items I wear regularly, from sweaters to pants, that came from my parents' old clothes. But it's not just clothing that minimalism has helped me to be more thoughtful about. It's just pretty much anything we bring into the house. Before we make a purchase of something for the house, we kind of take a step back and ask ourselves, is this something we really need? Is this something that we want just because it looks cool and it's at the store, or is this something we'd actually use and would actually make our lives better? And that's helped us kind of think more specifically about everything we bring into the home. And I think that's helpful, especially thinking about possibly moving, and it keeps the amount of stuff we have low, keeps the amount of stuff especially that we have that we don't use low, and make sure we're really thoughtful about what we bring into the home. And it's similar with my collecting. I used to buy anything with Star Wars on it, and now I've decided to really focus on the vintage figures from the 70s and early 80s, and then also Phantom Menace figures, because I find a lot of those really quirky and cool. But that's all I buy, and if something falls outside of those categories, unless it's something I really need, I just don't buy it. And the second lesson that minimalism has taught me is to be content with what I have. I've been on this journey over the past years of trying to be content and live in the present. I've always been kind of a forward thinker, ambitious, always dreaming about where I wanted to end up, never focused on the now. Minimalism has helped me to realize that I won't ever be more content than I am now. If my current happiness is based on a version of the future that I perceive would make me happy, or that I perceive as something I want, I'll never get there. Why? Because the goalposts are going to change. If I achieve what I dream of now, I'm just going to dream of more eventually, because that means my contentment is not rooted in actually achieving that thing, but it's just rooted in dreaming about the future, in dreaming big, in dreaming bigger. So if I'm not content now, I won't ever be content. And on the other hand, if I am content now, then I'll always be content. Ultimately, minimalism has shown me just to be present, be thankful for what I have, and be thoughtful about, the things around me, the environment around me, the stuff I add to that environment, in order to keep myself content with the bare minimum of things that I actually need or want. So even though I won't get rid of all of my Star Wars figures or my funky t-shirts, even though I'm not adopting minimalism as a lifestyle for the physical space around me, my foray into the philosophy has shown me a lot of valuable lessons. I like to think of myself as an emotional minimalist, actually. I've been working on stripping ego and desire from my life, leaving behind just a simple appreciation and gratitude for the things around me, like my Star Wars toys.